Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, progressives. Yes, it's Friday, and welcome to the December 6th, 2024 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, Twitter Stream, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, email me at richard@WCPT820.com. My man Henry is running the show this morning, keeping us on the rails. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Hey there. That's where you can get Choose Views, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. And, of course, The Big Picture with my man Edwin Eisendrath. You guys need to look in. You need to Google Edwin and look at the stuff that he's done. And, you know, I don't give Edwin enough of a shout out because he's on the weekends and, you know, that's on me. But, you know, Google his name and see the work that Edwin has done. You know, Joan's a legend, Patty's a legend, and, you know, Edwin in his own right is as well. So check him out. And make sure you're listening to his show and certainly catching his articles over at our heartlandsignal.com platform, which is the next thing I was going to say. And, oh, by the way, check out our folks at Out Chicago. Can't miss them and all of our weekend shows. But, yeah, make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. As always, lots of good stuff there. And when you get a chance, Google Edwin. He's really got a great history here in Chicago and really smart dude and very measured, but all about doing the thing to help get progressives elected to office, as he would say. So today from 2 to 5 p.m., Joan Esposito will be taking your calls for the first half of the show, and then I'll be joined by political science professor John Shaw and Washington Monthly Politics editor Bill Scher. Joan Esposito live, local and progressive, as we know, weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820. Saturday on The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. He'll be joined by Seth Kotler, author of the Substack newsletter Rightlandia, and the forthcoming book on a far-right takeover of the GOP. David Pepper, author of Laboratories of Autocracy, A Wake-Up Call from Behind the Lines, and trans activist Charlotte Clymer, author of Charlotte's Web, Thoughts on Substack. The Big Picture, of course, with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. Central here on WCPT 820. And go over and make sure you get our podcast, the Choose Views podcast, full episodes and featured interviews. You can subscribe to one or both. The podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, and TuneIn. Just search for Choose Views with Richard Chew, or get the links by visiting heartlandsignal.com/choose-views. And on that page, you will find a lot of good stuff. And Patty's show's on today. She's not taking it. Oh, yeah. Okay. And we miss Patty. We can't miss Patty. Don't be upset, Patty, if you're listening. 5 to 7, Patty Vasquez, as we all know, driving you home in her wonderful hoopty. So there you go, guys. I was like, wait a minute. That's not, what did I miss on my notes today? Henry's like, Richard, just slow down, man. You got it. Just, take a deep breath, like you always say, make your life count. See, there you go. I can poke fun at myself. I'm pretty good at that. Busy show today, guys, so I'm going to keep it brief. At least I'll try to. Our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics podcast will be giving us a shout at 6:30. And then we have Dante King with us in the 7 o'clock hour, and George Sheedy will be with us as well in the 7:30 hour. So we're going to be running fast this morning, keeping up with our wonderful call-in guests. So I'm looking forward to chatting with each of the three of them. So you want to tune in for that. That being said, we are going to get right to it, guys. Choose Views News here on Friday, December 6, 2024. Executive security is definitely in the spotlight. The fatal shooting of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Health Group's insurance division, prompted an outpouring of shock and condolences from business leaders, as well as a renewed focus on security risks faced by top executives. The New York Police Department's chief of detectives said in a press conference that Thompson did not have a security detail and Thompson's wife told NBC he had been receiving threats. Less than a third of S&P 500 companies reported providing personal security for executives between 2021 and 2023, according to a compensation tracker, the compensation tracker Equilar. I think that's something that's a miss there, and I'm hoping that, that's a conversation that we need to have, and I think that's going to be a bigger topic as we go forward in this next administration cycle. So we'll be talking about that in the weeks to come. 25 big ideas that will shape 2025 as 2024 draws to a close. The trends defining our world are coming into sharper focus. Every year, LinkedIn does a bold predictions from the editors and experts from around the world, from Citi CEO Jane Fraser to Bill Gates, that are poised to shape the year ahead. This year's 2025 Big Ideas offers a glimpse into what may define 2025 and beyond. And it's a survey you guys can actually participate in. So if you go to LinkedIn, you can find that survey, and I recommend you do it to see what many of the big brains are talking about in that space. I've got my own list that I'll be talking about as we get toward the end of the year on this show. Airlines lift the holiday outlook. Blue skies ahead for the nation's biggest airlines. Both American and Southwest Airlines lifted their end-of-year guidance Thursday in expectation of strong holiday travel numbers. JetBlue did the same a day earlier, and while also revealing it will cut a number of unprofitable routes, including some from New York City to Miami, London, and Paris. In other airline news, American announced yesterday that it's inked a 10-year deal with Citigroup to be the airline's sole credit card issuer. Co-branded cards are a huge moneymaker for airlines, bringing in $5.6 billion for American in the 12 months through September. Bitcoin, not that you all are into Bitcoin or into crypto, but Bitcoin shockingly soared past the $100,000 milestone for the first time, marking a significant milestone in the world's largest cryptocurrency. The digital asset has set records again and again in recent months amid the hopes that the post-election landscape will provide a more supportive regulatory environment by overall crypto industry. We'll see what happens there. Streamers are all in on live sports, and this one definitely caught my eye. Streaming services continue to double down on live sports, with Disney adding content from ESPN onto its main Disney Plus platform. The streamer plans to make approximately 100 live games per year available to Disney Plus subscribers without a subscription to ESPN Plus, as well as developing a Disney-specific version of SportsCenter in a bid to lure casual sports fans. ESPN owns dedicated flagship streaming services, is set to debut this fall. Meanwhile, Amazon announced that its live stream of Black Friday's NFL football drew 13.5 million viewers, a 41% increase over the first such broadcast last year in 2023. So those are the things that are kind of happening in and around our world of Choose Views News, guys. And what can I tell you? We've got a lot to pay attention to these days, and that's why I want to try to keep bringing you information. Hey, listen, I want to ask you guys a question. As I talked about a moment ago with the 2025, I've got my list of things that are going to be critical and important as we get into 2025, and I'll talk about those toward the end of the year. But I want to know, what do you think? What would be your prediction? I'd like to hear from you guys this morning. What prediction or trend do you expect to have the biggest impact in 2025, and share your thoughts in terms of what you think it might be and why you think it will have the biggest impact in 2025. You can share your thoughts by email to me at richard@wcpt820.com, or you can simply just give us a call this morning. But I'm curious to see what you guys think will be the biggest impact item in 2025 at any point in the year, in fact. So I'm trying not to load the question, but at the same time, have you guys contribute your thoughts and ideas, or what your prediction might be or trend might be next year. And, some may perceive that as a loaded question. It's not meant to be. It's just, I want to hear what you guys are thinking about. And in that, I'm going to also add, this is the other part of my thinking when I was putting some things together for the show. What are you optimistic? What are you going to be optimistic about in 2025? I mean, listen, yesterday we had Miss Shepley on, and she brought the heat. She was unfiltered, as she should be, and as we should be. I appreciate her candor. We will have her back. She will kind of be, I think, a rudder for many of us. And so, I've asked her to be with us again. She spent some time in Chicago, so I think she'll appreciate. And I love what she said, Henry, about, it's great that there's a strong progressive station in Chicago, which was really kind of cool to hear. We hear it a lot, but, every now and again when there's a person that has her background and does what she does, it's nice to know that she understands the importance of progressive thinking. Now, so coming back to that for a second, I do want to know what you guys think about next year, and what are you looking forward to? As much as we know the craziness that we're going to be dealing with, let's find our bright spot. So when you give us a holler today or in the next couple of days, we're going to talk about that. What are you looking forward to? What are you optimistic about? All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what to do this weekend here in Chicago. We'll get ready for our guest and keep it moving forward. The number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Catch us on all the socials. We're out there trying to give you what we can, giving you the best that we've got. Da-da-da. And also, including in that, are things to do this weekend here in good old Chicago, this first full weekend of December 2024. And what do we have happening? Starting yesterday and running through Sunday, the one-of-a-kind holiday show brings together over 600 exceptional artists, designers, and makers with thousands of shoppers that love art and handmade goods. Now it's the 23rd year. That's amazing. I didn't realize that. This is Chicago's premier holiday destination for unique handmade gifts for everyone on your list. And that's taking place at the Mart. Started yesterday and will be running through Sunday, so check that out. Also, the Joffrey Ballet's Nutcracker. It's an annual event, two-time Tony award-winning presentation. Christopher Weldon's The Nutcracker, magical event every year, and we definitely are going to appreciate having that here in Chicago at the Joffrey Ballet. This starting today and going to the 28th of December, so that should be cool. That's going to be over at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, 20 North Wacker, in case you didn't know, if you haven't been there in a while. And City of Chicago Christmas tree. Well, that we got that bad boy. What's the word? Lit. But this weekend is going to be more festivities taking place around and in and around Millennium Park. So make your way over there. And A Christmas Carol is also one of the performances taking place here in Chicago. The Dickens Classic at the Goodman Theater, 170 North Dearborn. Make your way over there. Millennium's Park Holiday Sing-Alongs. So bundle up because it's going to be a little chilly. But make your way over there where you can belt out songs and be a part of this wonderful Chicago tradition. And one of the great things about this is the diversity of people that show up, age and just community. It's just cool. I love it. I've driven by Millennium Park during that time, and it's always nice to see folks out and about. And I'm going to be personally going here, the Chris Kendall Market, which is crazy, packed, but can be fun. What you can expect at the market, the German-style Christmas market provides a safe outdoor experience for the whole family. And if you get chilly, you can get some of the warm drinks that they're going to have there, the apple ciders and the teas and the coffees and all. So make your way over there with your family. That's in the Daily Civic Center at 50 West Washington. And then the other fun thing to do is the Lincoln Park Zoo Lights up in Lincoln Park Zoo. Celebrate 3 decades of priceless holiday memories as Lincoln Park Zoo's annual Zoo Lights, presented by ComEd, ComEd and Lights, this weekend. So get there, make sure you can enjoy that and check that out. I think you'll enjoy the energy that'll be there. Make your way over, have some fun. It's Chicago, guys. Chicago's a great winter city, and I am excited about it this weekend because I have one of my nieces coming into town with my grandniece, Henry. So that'll be fun. We're going to hang out and do some fun things with her. My grandniece is 5 now or 6? 5. She's never been to Chicago. So this will be a good weekend. There was a moment where I was like, if it snows, okay, because she's not seen snow before. They live in Texas. But, yeah, so it'll be kind of cool to hang out with them this weekend and have her see some of the things in Chicago. So I'll be doing a couple of those things that I just mentioned in terms of my weekly things to do in Chicago. So looking forward to it. And you guys get out and enjoy yourselves with your families as well. So here we are. It's Friday. We know we're going to be packed with guests, and we're looking forward to having our good friend in a few minutes, Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics, chatting up with us. What's one of the things that I have been saying for a long time, before the election, before this show, frankly, on the family meeting, when I sat in on Joan's show, when I sat in there, I have always said we have to bring all of our tools, all of our players, means all of our players, to the fight. And that was prior to this debacle of an election. And it's going to continue. And so part of that is being willing to push back. And there's a short clip, but a great clip that I wanted you guys to hear this morning. As much as we are enjoying this holiday season and want to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to inspire you guys to be in that space and do things in Chicago if you're here or in your respective city throughout the country. We also have to remember that part of the joy of having these joyous things to do and these fun things to do is our willingness to fight back and to push back so that we can protect those things that are near and dear to us. Our ideas, like David Jolly said, are better for everybody involved. They're not select to just help out a few people over here because they got a few $1 billion or a few $100 million. They're designed to help out everybody. So our ideas are better. They just are. And I'll challenge anybody on the planet in that conversation, including Donald Trump and all of his minions and Elon Musk. I'll line them up. Put me in a room with 10 of the top, or whatever, 10 of the knuckleheads on the right, and I'll go after every single one of them because I believe our ideas are better. I don't think I'm better. Our ideas are. So line them up. I'll take them on. Stand on the stage of debate with every one of them to help them understand why our ideas are better. And I say that not to be arrogant or to sound anything other than the ideas are what support me, not me. And I support when I say that, I mean the ideas are what give me energy. Okay. I support the ideas, but the ideas give me energy. And so this short clip I want to play, and then we'll come back, is about pushing back. It's about letting folks know we're not going to roll over. That's not going to happen because our ideas are better than yours. They just are. So Henry's going to play this clip from Lee McGowan, also known as Politics Girl.
Trump is just a distraction of what a collection of behind-the-scenes, money-grubbing, power-seeking have wanted for years, and we have to pull back the curtain and reveal them, refuse to submit to the tactics of this administration, make them famous for their bad behavior, mock them, deride them, get in their way, and have fun doing it. We have to fight back every single time these people attack our institutions, our laws, our people, and while they may be our enemy, the real enemy is normalization. None of this is normal, and we can never give them the victory of our thinking that it is.
That's it. Play that over and over again every morning when you get up to get out and about. And I'll send it to you. If you want it, I'll send me an email. As I've said before, I'll get it to you. And, reaching out to Lee. I'm probably going to have her on the show before the end of the year. Fingers crossed. But listen, she's right on point. don't, it's our ideas are better. And we're not going to allow them to steamroll us. You just got to stand up. And so that's why in this holiday season and all the fun things that we want to be able to do to protect those things, guys, we have to stand up to protect being able to go and see the Joffrey Ballet and to go to the Chris Kendall Market and whatever you have in your city, anywhere in the country that resembles that or is similar to that in terms of celebration. We got to fight for it. And so for the people who want to, y'all know my new phrase, you can't go to Mar-a-Lago. And we have to amplify our message. That's real. We cannot go to Mar-a-Lago. Nope. So stand up, people. Stand up, folks. I'm going to push everyone that that follows us every single day. And we're going to be, we're going to have moments where we get tired and when we get frustrated and maybe even scared. However, that's when you reach back to your ancestors, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, to make sure that you recognize the fight that they put in so that we could be where we are today, and not yield to these punks. And they are just that. They are just that. How do you go after people who don't want to harm you? You just want to harm them for the purposes of power. And to add to the fire, to throw another log on this pushback, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Representative House Democrat Jim McGovern, but you guys need to follow him on social media. Representative Jim McGovern is nobody's. Don't mess with him. He will dress you down. He's the kind of guy that, like Eric Grant and I talk about, he's going to knock over some tables, and I'm there to help knock them over with him. Representative Jim McGovern scorched Trump in terms of what he calls his cabinet of junk drawer as he slammed the president-elect over. And I'm not even going to call him president-elect. I'm going to call him the convicted felon. I'm referring to Donald Trump by his name, but not President Trump. I'm going to refer to him as the convicted felon because that's what he is. Just hasn't been put in jail yet. All right. So Representative Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, follow this dude. I'm telling you, if you need to be motivated every now and again and you get tired of listening to me on a particular morning, follow Jim McGovern. Look at what he's doing, what he's talking about. But this is I'm just going to read to you before we go to this break and then be joined by our good friend Karen. He said that Trump is making his cabinet a junk drawer. And let's see, quote, I mean, it looks like the requirements to be in the Trump White House is that you either abuse women or you're out of touch. You're an out of touch billionaire. He said that Trump's picks are beyond insane. And he is right on point in that. So, get out and support this dude. I love him. I've been following him for a while. He said, what's next? He had, are they going to replace FBI background checks with the Fox News screen test? I mean, he doesn't play. And this is, I'm not even going to call it the alpha liberal Democrat. That's not my thing. He's just being himself. He's just saying, no, you're not going to roll over me. He reminds me in stature of our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. If you Google, you'll go, oh, they might be distant cousins. Look a little bit alike. And that's a compliment to both of them, so nobody be offended. McGovern knocked Trump for picking several men accused of sexual misconduct to join the administration, including, of course, Pete Hegseth from the former Fox News dude. And, this guy's, another quote, this guy's probably dropping out momentarily. Apparently he drinks on the job and paid to cover up his sexual assault allegations. Even his mom doesn't like him. Oh, my gosh. Is that crazy? But that's what you got to say. That's what you have to say. He said Republicans, he scolded Republicans for having their priorities all screwed up. Picking and talking to people who are now starting to, that they only cater to the top. They don't cater to the citizens. That's what you got to do. That's the pushback. That's the fight. That's what Lee McGowan's talking about. We got to call them out every moment and every measure. Don't give them a week and go, oh, okay, let's talk about it now. No. Nope. We can't rely on the media to do that, so we get to call them out. We're our media. We're the media now. We call it out in the moment when it's said. We do not wait. Okay? And Representative McGovern is a good example of that. So, All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278. When we come back, we'll be with our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. It's Friday, the first Friday of the month of December of 2024, and here we are getting ready for a great weekend in Chicago. It's going to be pretty nice out. I think that, the good thing about it is we have, as Henry said, it's cold as you know what, but planning on being sunny, and the temperature's going to bump up a little bit by the end of the weekend, so that's good to see. So enjoy it, do the things that you want to do, and maybe add a few things to that list. All right, guys, since it's Friday, that means that we are hanging out with our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. Good morning, Karen. How are you today, dear?
Oh, good morning, Richard. I am doing okay. We had a big holiday party last night for work, and so, it's an early morning, let's say. Early morning this
You had one cup of coffee and you're waiting for that second. You're waiting to get you're waiting to get the first one out of the way so you can have the second one, right?
That's right. That is right. Yeah. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm actually I'm excited. My niece and my grandniece are coming in to Chicago this weekend, so I'm picking them up from the airport after the show today. So I'm excited to see them. I haven't seen them in a year since last holiday season, and so that I'm really excited about. I'm gonna, spend the weekend, just kind of taking them around Chicago. But yeah, in the bigger picture of things, Karen, I am motivated, as you know. I have, like any of us progressives, we have our ebbs and flows, and I try to what's the word? Kind of level that out by having good friends and good associates like you. And I think it's a blessing that we get to do what we do and talk to folks that, Karen, let's be honest. You and I know that there are folks who are more challenged, and I don't mean this in a negative way. They are struggling with this election results more than you and me and Stephanie and Hal Sparks and John Fugelsang and Tom Hartman and Joan Esposito and all the rest of us because we have a voice that we get to use in this capacity. So we know that there are folks out there that are struggling with this more and may have a bigger sense of worry. So I personally cannot allow myself to have too many of the non-good days because I have to be, I'm keeping my promise to you and so many others that I'm going to be here fighting hard as hell to make sure that we get to turn this thing around and be able to move forward. So I have to be good, and I mean that when I say it. So that's where I am.
Yeah, well, you know what, and you nailed it, and it's spot on, and you are that voice, first thing in the morning that so many of us hear, and it is important, and I agree. I had a long conversation with a coworker. It was a big gathering last night, but we had a long conversation, and she is to say that she's taken it harder than I am, maybe a little bit of a stretch. We're probably right there with one another. But like you said, I mean, it does help when you have a community of people that you can go to talk things through, to understand that, you are not alone. And so, I invited her to our women's walking group that's kind of, off of, Stephanie's show, our little Steph Head Walk group of women. And it is one of those things that I think, as you say, we have got to look for the bright spots. And Lee McGowan, I'm so glad that you played her because she actually was a huge bright spot for me. I went and listened to an episode of hers with Robert Reich. Mm-hmm. And, words of resistance, words of finding hope and joy amidst everything that we're going to be dealing with. And hopefully, the next 2 years, and even more hope that it's only 4 years. Of course, we know a lot. Your audience, we are educated voters and members of the society, and understand the threat of Project 2025. I mean, Donald Trump tried to say that he had nothing to do with it, but yet we all know that we knew it was a lie then. We know it's a lie now. And it is so important, too, for your voice and for Lee's voice and for everybody on WCPT. And, we cannot, we have to invest. We have to have some people to invest in progressive media. But, you are always a good reminder that we have a strong media channel in Heartland Signal. And we have got to show our gratitude, all of us, for you and for the entire lineup on Progressive Talk Radio. Because these are going to be the voices that people are going to need to hear to keep in the resistance, keep in the fight, keep some hope alive, and find some joy in these dark days that are going to come.
Well, we're going to be the light that's needed. And I say we, I mean all of us collectively, and the promo, all of our players means all of our players. And I think that we've got to lean, and there's a specific thing that Karen and I are going to chat about. But I wanted to make sure that she and I had a chance to talk about this point in terms of connecting, staying strong, and our voice being our own light. And so, for example, we have so many people that listen to various shows and podcasts throughout the country. And this is what I want anybody and everybody to do. If you are listening to this show, any of the shows on CPT, on Sirius, Free Speech, wherever, what you have to do, guys, please hear my voice when I say this. You have to share these outlets with everybody that you know, because let's be honest, Karen, 1.5%, 1.48% is the popular vote margin in this election. Right. That means that if 76 million people voted for Trump, about 74 million people voted for Kamala Harris. That's a pretty damn close number, which means that there's a lot of people, and we know now we're seeing this regret and buyer's remorse and all this other garbage. And I just saw this one with the union, which I'm going to talk about next week, where this one union guy is now like PO'd in Pennsylvania because of the deal with Nippon Steel. And we're like, we tried to tell you. What were you thinking? We tried to tell your dumb behind that he had the knife in your back and you thought he was feeling you up. No disrespect, anybody. Don't get upset, y'all. Don't get upset, anybody. But listen, we tried to tell you. And now, so I got to stay on point. I don't want to rant. The numbers are so tight. So we have to share what we're doing, and what our message is. And if you're listening to this show or any of the other shows on any of the other channels that are progressive leaning, you have to share that. If you're listening to a podcast, and you got to let your folks know, repost something that you see or hear, so that people know that they're not alone, that they have a place to go to get information that's going to be more accurate, more cogent, and certainly more relevant. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Do not be silent and share it. And exactly. I mean, I have to say, like, I was listening. Of course, I always listen to the shows on WCPT. I listen to some other amazing podcasts. Lee McGowan, Politics Girl, is absolutely a must tune in, because she is so smart. And the way she does her job is just on point. And so I am hyping her this week, because she really did give me a lot of hope. But it does kind of make you feel, I'm going to be honest, because Anita and I have been doing True Blue for a little over a year now. We started it, about a year out from the general election, as a way to add our voices to the mix. And I thought to myself, man, are we we have all these great voices out here. Do I need to just kind of focus on just talking to my people, and like maybe we don't do the podcast anymore because I'm feeling a certain kind of way. And you know what? I thought to myself, no, this is part of the resistance. Our voices are part of the resistance, and it is so when we listen to Joe and Mika just bend the knee, and then go out of their way, like for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever, just spinning their wheels trying to defend their disgusting action and justify it somehow. No. How
easy would it have been for them to say, "Hey guys," but it tells us they don't have the capacity to have said, "We dropped the ball here. We're journalists. We report the news, and we drop the ball here, and then move on." But they can't do that, and that's because they know they messed up.
Mm-hmm. Show some respect for your audience. That's what it really is all about. Show some respect for your audience and for the people that are in the fight. Those two are millionaires on their own. Each one of them are millionaires.
Yep.
And they're lecturing all of us and trying to justify their disgusting who was it the other day that they basically whisked off, and he'll probably never
it was
be on
one
the show.
of the, gosh, what was the guy's name? I heard about that.
It'll come to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like so they're self-destructing. I mean, they're eating their own face right now in terms of cutting into whatever brand that they had, and in that space, this is the thing that I'm going to pivot to. Let's talk a little bit for a moment about something that I talked about a couple days ago, and that's this. So this is a good example. Mika and Joe are a good example of if a business or an entity is doing this kind of trash stuff, this sort of trashy, disgusting behavior, then we need to leave that business and stop doing business with them. And I talked about this the other day, Karen. You sent me a text during the broadcast, and I want you to talk about this a little bit. If you, as an individual, want to have an immediate impact, do some work, like I said, and create a little chart. The chart is, where do I spend my money? How much do I spend? And let's find out a little bit about those companies, those entities. We had a caller that called in about this, talking about the Koch brothers. I think it was Bill. I think it was Bill from Wisconsin. I may not be right about that. I don't want to get it wrong. But we had a caller the other day that said, "Yeah, Richard, that's exactly right. We should buy stuff from other places." So let's talk about that for a second in terms of where you're going to spend your money going forward, and one of the apps that you're familiar with. Talk about that, Karen, if you can.
Okay, so real quick, it's David Froome, just for all of your audience that are yelling at their radios right now saying, David Froome. Okay, it was David Froome.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Okay, so one of the step head walkers, the first day that we met after the election, and we, of course, were all shell-shocked and struggling, but she brought to my attention goods. So if you go on in your app store and just search goods or goods unite us, it will tell you, it gives you a whole guide and tells you who these different corporations and companies donate to. And it is super user friendly. It'll show you if they don't donate to people, if they have stopped their contributions to PACs, super PACs. And so that is going to be my guide. And I do think that is another way that we resist. And Lee McGowan, Politics Girl, spoke about that as well. And, that is the way we resist, is with our dollars. We don't have to boycott everything.
Right.
Support local businesses. Support local businesses as much as we possibly can. I am on a mission specifically to support Black-owned businesses, local Black-owned businesses, as I have been for quite a while. But I am really doubling down on that quest now. And because we need to support the people that support us.
Yep.
We need, and we all have to support one another, because that's all we have, because nobody is going to save us. Yeah. And our politicians, our Democrats, are not going to save us as much as we would like them to. There are some that I am super appreciative of. James McGovern, of course, is one of them. But we have to, as you said, to your point, we have got to be the ones to reach out and talk and open up these conversations.
Yeah. To Karen's point about not boycotting everything, but making a determination and decision as to where you're going to spend your money. I'll give you guys an example. What Karen just said is just profound about she's made a decision to do more business with Black-owned businesses. So let's talk about that in the context of let's talk about that in the context of local businesses. So, for example, one of the easy things that everybody can do is sort of flip the script. If you see that one of the big box retailers in your community is not where you want them to be or think they should be in terms of social engagement, political engagement, financial engagement, then go to a different store. Maybe go to the local store down the street in your neighborhood than the big box store. And if you can't, maybe you can't do that all the time. But look at the things that you buy and say, you know what? That store down the street has that too. So let me patron that local business to keep them in business because that local business staying in business helps my community. That's the way you let the big box retailers know. Now, granted, you could be doing business with, I get this. People are probably going, but yeah, Rich, what if that local business is a Trump supporter? I get that. I fully get that. And you may not be able to find that out. But if you do like I did when we were away a few weeks ago and we saw a business that had a sign in it that says Trump won, I stopped and turned in a different direction and didn't go in that business. So it can be a local business too. So make a point, if nothing else, guys, after you do your list, make a point of saying, I'm going to try to do business with local businesses if the big box retailer is one that's, like I had a friend of mine send me something the other day that says, I don't care how I go about getting my crafty Christmas gifts. One place I'm not spending my money is Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby, that's right. Michael's is a good alternative there. And to your point, if those little local businesses supported Trump, they'll let you know.
Yeah,
they will let you know. You will know it. They're loud and proud about it.
Yep.
They're not. Nobody's trying to hide it.
Yeah.
I don't. I have no doubt in my mind that if there is a Trump supporter owned business, that I will know that. And I can identify that.
And no matter where you are in the country, guys, you have the power to say, I'm not going to spend my money there. You do.
That's right.
You do not have to just roll into it and no, that's what I've been doing forever. No. Stop doing that thing. And that in and of itself will be empowering. I'm telling you, it will be. So, and if you go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. No, and I was going to say, be, and of course we have to be aware and we have to be understanding too that we also live in a country where there are food deserts, where there are underserved areas in our country that do not have a lot of options there. As far as like the big box stores, let's be real about that. So, a lot of times people are, having to travel out of their neighborhood. And just be mindful that when you travel outside to get your, goods and services, know who you're shopping with, know who you're spending your hard-earned money with.
And if you can't not do, like Karen is saying, we're realistic in this conversation about where you spend your money. We know that there are scenarios and situations where you have to spend your money in certain places. I get that. So no one think I'm lost my mind in that space or lost the touch with reality. Right. All we're saying is now's the time to have your voice be heard and be much more selective about where and what. And I'm talking about just do a laundry list of everything you spend money on and ask yourself, is there a better place that I can spend my money? And it could be from your rent to your insurance to your mortgage to where you get your hair done, everything. Just look at everything and make that business go through your filter of if I'm going to continue to do business with these people. That's all we're saying. Just pause and do the work so that you then feel, because this is all about empowering people to feel like they can take back something that they may feel was taken away from them on November 5th. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what Karen's trying to say as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's, like, for example, there is a big store that sells like small shark, and that is like the only game in town in a lot of areas. And so understanding that is what, that you have to go where you can go. But you can make your opinion known as well.
Yep.
So ask to speak to the manager like I do.
Right. Wait. You start off by saying, listen, my name is Karen. I want to speak to the manager.
That's right. I want to speak to the manager.
And yes, my name is Karen.
Right now. And yes, did I mention my name is Karen and I want to speak to your manager?
All right, my friend. We'll end on a laugh for everybody that's listening to us this morning. Thank you, Karen, as always, for being with us and bringing the joy and bringing the energy that we need to have, and letting folks know that we're out here to support what they're going through and what they're trying to do. So, have a good weekend.
Okay. Well, thank you. Happy to be here, and you have a wonderful weekend as well. Everybody, find your people. Gather in community with one another and lift each other up, because we are all a part of the resistance, and we need each other.
There it is.
So I thank you as always.
All right, Karen. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Have a great one.
Bye-bye. Yeah, guys. My name's Karen. My name's Karen. I want to talk to the manager. Yes, my name is Karen. Oh, gosh, that's just hilarious. I'm making too much fun of that, but I can just see Henry. Oh, rolling. Yeah, my name's Karen. I want to talk to the manager. I don't know why I find that crazily funny, but, that's probably because it's there's more of that needed from all of us. My name's Henry. I want to talk to the manager. That's it. Tell them tell your name. Tell them your name when you've got an issue. You let folks know who you are. That guys, listen. I am going to be at the tip of the spear in the front of the room on this conversation. We are not going to let them take away our joy, our energy, our belief in the fact that our ideas are better. It's just not going to happen while I'm standing. Not going to let that happen. I don't care. I mean, listen, I heard what loud and clear, and she's a voice that we are going to continue to have with us, and with Ms. Shepley, who was with us yesterday, and she's right. Too much of the time, people have fallen asleep and allowed things to slip away. And she said it best. She said it's not just all of this big swath of takeaway. It's the incremental stuff. And the incremental stuff happens while people are not paying attention. And, you see something, you go, that doesn't make any sense. But you don't do anything about it or say anything about it. And then like 2 days later, you go, yeah, I was on that street and I saw that. And I didn't. No, not anymore, guys. You got to raise your hand and say, hold on a second, player. That doesn't make any sense. And that's a conversation that you have with people that you love and you care about, your business associates, your friends, your third circle colleagues. No longer do folks get away with the incrementals like Ms. Shepley talked about yesterday. No more. Just cannot allow that to happen. And I know I say that a lot. I say it a lot because I mean it and I believe in it. And it's what I do. And I'm not trying to tell you do what I do. I'm not saying that from being a jerk standpoint. I'm just letting you know that's if you want to take back this thing that we feel that we may have lost on any level, politically, socially, or economically, then now's the time to raise your hand and say, I'm in. So there you go. Always great to have Karen with us. I'm going to hit a couple quick things because we've got guests at 7 o'clock and at 7:30 before we go to this break. But make your way over to Heartland Signal. Please, please, please do that, guys, because got some really good articles that are back up. One of them, particularly Michigan Republican calls for making gay marriage illegal again. And if you look at him, I rarely make comments about people and their looks, but in this particular case, this dude needs to marry somebody or be with somebody, and I'll leave it there. Okay. And then there's a great Heartland Signal on X clips that we have there from Montana State Representative Zoe Zephyr, Democrat, speaks to CNN after SCOTUS appeared favorable to upholding Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. Once again, the Supreme Court is not particularly supreme, or I should say 6 of the members of the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. And you guys, listen, there's a video out there, there's an audio and a video out there of Representative Pat Fallon of Texas and acting Secret Service Director Ronald Lowe that got into a screaming match. I wanted to play it, but I didn't want to play it because it's just the screaming so loud. You can't really distinguish what they're saying. I mean, you can hear it, but it's get into a screaming match over Roe's position at the 9/11 memorial. And it was definitely one of those moments where the acting director of the Secret Service made his point, and the Republican Pat Fallon from Texas showed what kind of a behind he is. But again, Roe stood up for himself, and that's what we're talking about, is people standing up for themselves. I think that, the more that happens and that muscle develops and gets stronger, the better position we're going to be as we go forward in this next session, this next administration. And we talk about this on a national level because we know that these things can impact us on a local level. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back. When we come back in the 7 o'clock hour, we will have professor and author and human resource consultant Dante King will be with us. And I'm looking forward to chatting with him about some very important issues when it comes to hiring and who's employed in our various companies throughout the country. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
And take it away I shall. Welcome back to Chew's Views, 773-763-9278. Give us a call if you can. We always are excited when we have someone with us who is one of those big brain people and does great work out there to keep us aware of issues that are important, not to just select individuals, but to the greater society that we live in. And with us this morning is professor, author, and human resources management consultant Dante King. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, glad to have you with us this morning. You're a secret warrior in this conversation that so many people don't want to have. In terms of what's happening in terms of DEI in America, better employment practices, better hiring practices across the board. But tell us a little bit about your background in terms of your work at Mayo Clinic and some of the other things that you've done out on the West Coast in the medical field.
Sure. So I developed a curriculum, which was kind of the predicate for my first book, and now the second book that I'm releasing, titled Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness. And it's really looking forensically at the colonial laws, state-level laws, and federal laws that developed and defined what it meant to be white, and what it meant to establish institutions that are modeled after a logic of whiteness and what it means to be white, and looking at how laws and policies were enforced for the benefit, upliftment, and stabilizing of people who are identified as white, as well as, because when we think about race or, the concept of white or black, these are just that. These are concepts. They're not real. They've not been defined legally or scientifically. And so when we look at the ascribing of rights and privileges, but also the taking away or apprehension of rights and privileges for people who are non-white identified, that's actually defining what those terms mean in terms of access and opportunity or the lack thereof. And so it's really a forensic look at race and how it also shaped the psychology and the politics and sociological aspects of our culture. So
I have this thing, Dante, that I'm going to refer to as Doc. I have this thing, Doc, that I say a lot, and that is when somebody of your experience and knowledge is talking. I'm a note taker. I come from this old school of writing, handwritten notes while you're, in class, and you know what I'm talking about. So. Yeah. I have to force myself sometimes when I'm listening to someone like you on our show and not take notes and just listen. It's hard to not take notes because you'll say something and I'm like, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about that for decades. And so kudos to you because you just gave us like a baby masterclass. That I guess it's kind of not congruent, but you just gave us a masterclass on something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And that is there's no such thing as in terms of scientific or legal definition of whiteness or blackness, as it were. And it's the only two designations. It's like the polar opposites, and then everybody else falls kind of in the middle. I mean, if you're Muslim by faith, are you black or are you white? If you were born in Mexico City, Mexico, and you live in the United States now, are you black or white? If you were born in Canada, in Edmonton, Canada, and then you move to the United States, are you now white because you were born in Canada because you're Canadian by color? And that is such a.
That's right.
Talk to us about that because I need to shut up and listen and let other folks listen. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think what you just expounded upon is the reality that. These concepts and what they mean depend on people's training and how people have been programmed to associate meaning to specific, words, concepts, who people are. It's just like, for example, when you look at maybe 100 years ago when there were Jim Crow laws that prohibited black people, mixed race people from accessing certain institutions, businesses, schools, etc. And as long as someone who could pass for white, as long as white people presumed and believed that they were full white and not mixed, they were okay. Such was the case with the NAACP head Walter White. In the moment that it began to circulate that he was partly black, in his heritage, people became enraged. And so we're talking about people's psychological attachments to words and concepts and what they mean. And I think it's very important when we then look at, the foundations of our institutions, everything from our legal institutions, our educational institutions, they all function and were all created by white men for the purposes and benefits of white people. And you can go and look at the 1790 Naturalization Act, which is the first act passed by the first Congressional Congress pertaining to citizenship. And the predicate that is the basis for citizenship in the United States of America is whiteness. They named that very specifically. And so that then means every right, every privilege, every opportunity that is granted to this new country and its newly found citizens means that it's an opportunity and access hoarding for white people. And American institutions have continued to function both by the design of laws and the enforcement of laws and policies for the benefit of white people and specifically against people who are identified as black and or African American.
And more so in that crowd, because, let's just be honest, folks, and this is where America has a challenge, and this is not an indictment, it's just speaking reality. America has a challenge with acknowledging its ills And in many cases,
absolutely.
And I'm not just talking about race necessarily or culture or gender, but in a lot of areas. And then that's when somebody from another country finds a way to come into our country. And I'm not talking about immigration and all that. I'm talking about they find a way to capitalize on our blindness. And that's one of the things that has been a deficiency of our country is its inability to acknowledge its imperfections. And as a result, it ends up the back doors, as I've said before, why are we fighting over crumbs, how the grass was cut in the front yard when the back door, the alley, the garage is wide open? And we, because of our inability to acknowledge these imperfections, and one of them is how we deal with race, how we deal with culture, how we deal with religion, we then have this big, like, trailer truck you can drive through what we want to say is great about the country. Now, I have to ask you this question. Why do you...
I agree. Can I comment on what you just said, though?
Sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, I think it's important to tease out in this moment exactly what you just said. And I want to register this person's name, not for the sake of critiquing him or his politics or anything that he stands for. But when we look at a person, for example, like Donald Trump, Donald Trump represents everything that America values and stands for. And I don't say that, to be smart or sarcastic, but when we think about the things that you just mentioned in terms of this country's history, the lack of accountability, it's a culture that is rooted and functions upon a foundation of narcissism. It does. And I think that we all, to a degree, are socialized with that. And this inability to be accountable for our misgivings, for our transgressions, things that we do, that doesn't feel good for anyone. But this culture really has done a phenomenal job at denying that things are what they are, that things have been what they've been. And I think when we look at someone like a Donald Trump, he represents the narcissism to its fullest extreme. He represents the celebrity that we value. He represents the economics of the equation. That's something that we're taught to strive for and see that we value highly. He represents the whiteness, the maleness. That is the epitome of the scale. And I just think we have to take an inventory of that and what our standards and values really are as a society.
When people say, and Doc, thanks for slowing me down on that, because that's a point that does need to be teased out a little bit more and more and more and more. Now, because when you tease something out, what happens? You get to the root of the problem. So I gotta say this and ask you this. To your point about the country's inability to do that, and then this Donald Trump being the representation, the uber representation of the counterintuitive wrong of the country. He's perpetuating this belief that he's the right with the country, but in fact he's the wrong with the country, and people have lined up to follow that wrongness, and it's hypocritical to what many people think that they are really following. And in actuality, this is who the country is. It just proved it when 75 plus million people voted for this thing that they say that we're better than, when in fact we're not better than that, because we just said that we're okay with all of these things that are counter and hypocritical to what the country actually says that it stands for. And that is the craziest bit of psychology that I think a lot of people have missed. They say that they think the country's better than us. This is not who we are. We can't be that way. But in fact, they leaned into it with both shoulders, like they were trying to stop a truck from backing down the hill.
That's right. That is right. And I think even if we are to give the majority of society the benefit of the doubt and say, most people were just really naive, they're functioning in a state of naivete, what would drive a culture of people to become this naive and or this ignorant? And I think we have to ask ourselves those questions. Much of it, at least in my view, is the distorting of history and the lack of teaching about the true history of this country, so that we understand what our mistakes, I don't know if I would even call them mistakes, but we understand what the evils and the ills were and are in this country. For example, I mean, there are 13 states right now requiring young girls and women to carry to term the babies of their rapists. If they were molested and raped by family members, fathers, stepfathers, uncles, grandfathers, they have to carry to term the babies of their rapists. We've been here before.
Yep.
That's the majority of this country's history.
Yeah.
Grooming men to rape women and then requiring the women to carry to term the babies of their rapists.
It's why my good friend and gentleman that I co-host another show with on our network called The Family Meeting. His name is Eric Grant. We talk about this all the time. The country it's living in this fog of we're better than this, and we're not. That's not who we are. I can't believe that. It is exactly who the country is. The country just has a difficult time acknowledging that that's who the country is. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't be aspirational about going forward. We frankly wouldn't have survived without the aspirational feeling and belief and desire to be better. But in reality, we've always had this. Sometimes I refer, Dante, to the country this way, as a drag race car. Those funny cars that drag race and then they pop a parachute to slow them down.
Yes.
I sometimes refer to the country as a drag race car with a parachute that pops out every now and again to remind the country you've got some history that you got to deal with. And if you don't, this parachute's going to pop back or pop out to drag you back every now and again. But the country doesn't want to acknowledge that parachute exists. And I'm a visual kind of person in terms of how I try to give ideas to people. That's how our country is. We got to get rid of the parachute. We got to acknowledge it, cut it off at its core before the country can just race on down the road without that parachute being attached to the rear end.
I love that analogy because it really, the ills and the unaddressed traumas of this country are slowing us down. I mean, they really are. As much as we preach about exceptionalism, we really could be exceptional if we were to atone for the things that have really tainted our culture and the cultural psychology of this place. So I appreciate your assessment. Thank you.
Well, I'm in a crowd of smartness, so I got to raise my game a little bit in terms of chatting with you. Listen, man, I want to ask you a question about something that's going on right now, and I think we saw it coming, and now it's in our faces, and that is companies are abandoning. Big companies, big name companies in an area of speciality for you are abandoning their DEI protocols. And these are not just some small companies that, we may not know about. These are some big, major, national and have international presence companies. Why are they, excuse my language, why are they punking out?
Well, I'll say this. I think that it's in their best interest. There's been the company America's First Legal. They've been launching lawsuits against companies that, maintain these DEI programs. So when I think about it from an economic and a political standpoint, who wants to spend, 2 years in litigation, paying a ton of lawyers' fees, and then have to settle a lawsuit that you might lose. Yeah. And I think that once organizations moved away from, using or focusing on things that have a founding in law, a basis in law, such as the title programs, Title 6, 7, 8, 9, as well as the 1964 Civil Rights Act, it really put organizations at a risk. And so I've been consulting with leadership teams, and I've been telling them, focus on anti-discrimination, anti-racism, anti-harassment efforts. the notion around diversity, equity, and inclusion, when some of those programs are defined in ways that appear that they're excluding certain groups, that is when organizations find themselves at risk.
Yeah.
And I think organizations have to be more strategic about that. And use the data. Use the data that shows that in certain classifications or at certain levels within your organization, you've got a homogenous problem.
Yeah.
And we also have to begin to take to task the ways in which my sister, Caretha Mitchell, she talks about whiteness is not neutral. Whiteness is never neutral. And so if we act like it's neutral, we then, give this false idea that most white people are where they are based on the fact that they worked hard, based solely on merit, not that they were hired because of their race or given opportunity because of their race. We know that is the case. And so we have to interrogate the realities of things like white misconduct, white underperformance, white mediocrity, the deficiency that may show up in ways where it allows us to focus most of our time and attention on non-white people and their mediocrity and their deficiency. And there's a grave imbalance there as well. And so it calls for us as a society to really interrogate the biases that we hold, both favorable and unfavorable.
That's right. And we refer to that sometimes in the community as get your boy or get your girl. Call out the folks so that you can, the calling out process is about, I think we can own that in a different way. And that ownership it's not to denigrate necessarily. It's to find a way to get to the core of something and then make it better. And irrespective necessarily of the community. And you as an African-American man and American, me is the same. I think that we've done a really good job of calling out our boy. And then I look at oftentimes in sports, because let's be honest, team sports in America, certainly basketball and football, a little bit less in baseball, are dominated by African American men and women, depending on if we're talking about the NBA, the WNBA. But one of the things that's clear is that those athletes are known for calling out their fellow players and making sure that they raise their game. And that's not to say that white players don't do that. I'm not saying that anybody that's listening and getting your undies in a bundle. I'm saying to what Dante King is saying, we have to do a better job collectively in the employment world of calling out the deficiencies, good and bad, or irrespective of group, a little bit better. And the country's got to do a better job of calling itself out, rather than just running down the road thinking, oh, we do nothing wrong. We're great all the time. We're in no imperfections. We are just wonderful and perfect and yada, yada. No. The way to get better is to go, man, I shouldn't have eaten that third piece of cake last night. I mean, and so sometimes it's so basic, Dante, I think, and that it's so simple to be able to do that and then be able to grow from there. I mean, is that... And I'm not getting a little bit over nuanced, but I'm only because what you're saying is so important, and so many more people need to tap into this. Let's stop fooling ourselves, and let's get on the train of how do we really make ourselves better. And I applaud you for the work you're doing.
You are spot on. It's not over nuanced at all. You are spot on. Let's be honest with ourselves, and we can address the problem.
Do you think that you may? And this is one of those addressing an issue. It's put out there, and I wanted to wait and talk about this next week. But since I have you on, I have to ask you this question. There are some people that are advocating. Speaking of calling out our history, there's some people that are out there advocating urging President Biden to apologize for enslavement and take some other, essentially racial justice actions before leaving office. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, we don't need any more apologies. They do nothing for us. I think instead they need to pass a bill around the monies that are owed to us America has a line item on its balance sheet that goes directly to black people in this country. And it's not, people call it reparations. No, these are things that are owed to us. When we think about, for instance, President Abraham Lincoln signing into law the Homestead Acts, where with white people, he signed it into law when they were citizens. They were the only ones who were citizens. That was 1862. And that law benefited, for the most part, white immigrants and white citizens in the North and South who were here, who had to just go to a land office, complete an application, and then they were awarded 160 acres of land. Yep. And so we have to look at the disproportionality of laws and policies like that, as well as laws and policies around racial restrictive covenants. In the two U.S. Supreme Court rulings, 1926 Corrigan v. Buckley and Euclid v. Ambler, which stated that racial zoning and racial restrictive covenants were legally binding documents and processes. Yep. So we really are owed a huge debt.
And that the base word of reparations, and we're not talking about reparations, we're talking about the debt, as Dr. King spoke to so often, and Malcolm did as well, is about repairing a part of our country that has been damaged repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. A good friend of mine says that a great part of our country, those folks who are African American or of African American descent, and many others, are in a constant state of PTSD. And we're the dominant community in that space. Yet, say the quote Native American brothers and sisters, but we are in a constant state of PTSD, and as a result of the country not dealing with that, the country's in a constant state of PTSD, and that's where we have to draw the line and take a page out of your book, no pun intended, and deal with that. Acknowledge it first, and say, all right, now let's figure out how we're going to go forward collectively. And boy, the deep breath that would be for the country would be massive. So, wow,
that's right. And I'll just say, if I can, you just captured the essence of my book that's coming out in February. I actually produced a docuseries about it, too. It's called Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, White Psychopathology, Collective Psychosis and Trauma in America. We are all suffering and in a collective psychosis and trauma.
So listen, let's have you back on around that time. I'll make sure that we get that plugged in so we can have you back on either right before or right after that comes out, because I'd love to talk about it and make sure that we can plug and push that for you as best possible. Does that sound okay?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Dante King, y'all, professor, author, and human resource management consultant, has been with us this morning. Thank you so much for taking the time. And man, oh man, my brain is on fire now. So Dante, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Care.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be moving our conversations forward. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Dante King, what a great interview. And if you want to, I was just reminded, if you want to tap into that conversation or the conversation that we had yesterday with Ms. Shepley, you can go to, of course, heartlandsignal.com to my featured page, and the interviews will be there. So that gives you the opportunity to listen to it again and share it and pass it on with folks that need to hear it. So either of our conversations today and or yesterday, check those out there. Dante King, just Google his name. He's all over on social media. He's an author as well as a professor, and really, he's the kind of guy. I mean, listen, if you're not African American, what he's talking about is relevant to you. He's not just a silo in his message. His message is about broadening the conversation, because his message is also about, overlays into the LGBTQ community, for example. And not us wrestling with that. It's with the Native American community. It's with our Latino community. It's with our Hispanic community. It's with our Muslim community. and our Jewish community, and the list goes on. His baseline is about, let's talk about the imperfections so that we can then go, all right, let's clean that up and go forward. That's the baseline. Yes, he's African American, and his primary focus is there, and it should be, because that's an expertise because of a life of living and having that experience. But the broader message is for all of us. These are my words, not his. The PTSD that our country lives through is horrible. It's just horrible. I've always said this. I know from my experience that there are millions of non-black people in America that have PO'd at our country. And some of them are on the right, and they're not just PO'd because of partisan politics. They're PO'd because they were led to believe that we were better than this, and they're searching. And this is what Ms. Shepley said yesterday. They were led to believe a certain thing, and then their inherent nature took over. That's what's really happened, y'all. You know, they were led down a path to think a certain thing, and then some people get picked off. Like, hey, come over here. You don't have to like the N words. You don't have to like the S words. You know, I'm staying. I have to keep that language clean. But y'all know what I'm talking about. You don't have to like the those F words, and y'all know what I'm talking about. So they get picked off, and they've been being picked off slowly over decades. And so it's incumbent on us to say, oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. We're not going to let any more people get picked off. Okay? Because I don't believe anybody born, when they're born, they're racist or sexist. I don't believe that. I won't believe that at all. I just don't. I'd be a hypocrite if I did believe that. But people get picked off. Lyndon Johnson's phrase, and I'll probably botch it, but you know what I'm talking about. You get the least of means white person to think that they're better than any black person, and you can pick that person's pocket clean. So there you go. People have been picked off over time because they were made to think they were better than somebody else. And we've been in this perpetual PTSD. So, I mean, I have to say that. And it shows itself. And this was put out by Media Busters, a.k.a. Sue in Rockville. Sue Cohen, my good friend. This is a really interesting thing about how this is leaning into the conversation about being picked off. There, in terms of the electorate, 71% of Americans, and check this out, this is the math. 185 million people did not vote for Donald Trump. But here's the real thing we got to look into. That's 71% of Americans did not vote for Donald Trump. So there's not a mandate, because that's the group of people, that's the number of people that not only did not vote for Donald Trump, but also that did not vote at all. So they didn't vote for Kamala Harris either. But the point is, there's not a mandate. There are people who are not participating in the process because they've been picked off from participating in the process because they don't believe the process works. And they, in their own way, are suffering from some elements of PTSD. They were led down this path of thinking that the country was a certain way and then found out that it isn't. But they were then led to believe that it's that person, that other's fault. Eric Grant and I were talking about this a few days ago. It's the others. It's those people over there that have caused me to not move to a greater point in life and to be more successful and to be healthier and all these other things. And then a messenger comes along, like Ms. Shepley said yesterday, a messenger comes along to say, hey, it's their fault over there. It's those people. And I can fix it because I know what to do to make them look even worse and put the blame on them. And so those people who got picked off are still suffering from PTSD because they never healed. They just continue to go down that path. And it got worse and worse and worse. So to what Dante King was talking about, until those things are acknowledged, then we're going to continue to repeat that same behavior. And I'm not a psychologist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or sociologist. I believe I have a pretty good instinct about people. And I also have lived a life where I've observed behavior. And it's saved me from a lot of harm by observing behavior, Henry. It's provided me with an opportunity to keep myself from going in a direction that wouldn't have been productive. And I don't mean doing something bad. It's prevented me from doing X, Y, or Z. So I'm not trying to be a psychologist or psychiatrist or sociologist here. I'm just saying from observing and paying attention and then making notes and listening to people like Dante King, I've learned that there's a huge amount of people in our country that are perpetually in this state of, they're in a fog. They're in an element of, again, I'm going to use it again, of PTSD. They can't even get to the point where they can even think about amplifying a better message. Because they're so, and here's how I'll put this. You look at any of the interviews that someone like a Jordan Klepper does, where he has gone to a Trump rally. And I say someone like him because there's a handful of folks that have been out there, showing up the rallies and doing these interviews. And time again, what happens is he will talk to someone and they're just repeating this message that they heard, and that message was elicited by someone who knew that they could tap into a person's stress point, aka PTSD, and keep pressing the easy button. So a lot of people are in this fog and they don't know how to get out of it. Now, I've said before, I'm not trying to run a school on helping those people if they don't want to be helped or believe that they need to be helped and are so arrogant as to think that they're more right than others. Not trying to change those people's minds. I've said this so many times. We want to get to the people who are gettable. And if there's anything that right now we need to do as progressive liberal Democrats is to get to those who are gettable, which is why I said at the beginning of the show today, and I've said it in the past, and you'll hear me say it in the future from an inspirational standpoint, is that we have to do the work there to reach out to people and to connect with folks. And as Karen Burns said earlier, continue to create the community that we know that we want to live in, and the people and have that be filled and stocked with the people that we want to be around. So the work is on us. And I say that inspirationally and aspirationally, but the work's on us. And that's okay. That's work that I'm willing to put in. And I'm telling you that if you can approach it from that perspective, that we do get to have a better community. If we deal with the histories, if we deal with the traumas, if we deal with the reality that some people need to be shaken and woken up in this time that we're in, and that there are many people who have stepped out of the process, they're that 71% of Americans that did not vote for Donald Trump, then you'll see that the way forward is by connecting with those folks as best we can. It's not staying at home. It's not pulling the covers up and saying, I don't want to go out and fight. That's not the winning message, guys. It's just not. So I hope that everybody can hear that message and understand that we've got those issues. We've got history that's bad history. If we address it, if we acknowledge it and address it, we can move in a better direction to making the country truly a better place to be. And that's going to be one of our superpowers as we go forward during these next 2 to 4 years on a national level. So let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. Guys, we'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
All right, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278 as we wrap up today's show. Make sure, and we had Karen Byrne on earlier from True Blue Politics Podcast. Make sure you check out her podcast, Google, and reach out to her podcast, and she's going to have the comedy duo that you guys are familiar with if you listen to the Stephanie Miller Show, also known as Frangela. Angela B. Shelton and Francis Collier will be on the holiday edition of True Blue Politics Podcast. So check that out if you get a chance. So here's another thing that to go back to a question that I asked Dante earlier about this whole conversation around President Biden apologizing for slavery. And I don't necessarily need that What needs to happen is there needs to be policy in place to improve the lives of people who have been impacted by enslavement. That's an action way of going forward. You know, you can apologize all day long, but what's behind it? Apologies are great, and they need to have some substance behind them. So that's kind of how I see that conversation. But there is this very strong, stout Joe Biden's must-do list that's been out there on social media. And again, I want to give a shout out to my friend Sue Cohen out in Rockville, Maryland. Here is a list of some things that she thinks that President Biden should be leaning into before January 20th of next year. One of them is, let me put these readers on again, Henry. One of those items is to issue blanket pardons to the members of the January 6th committee. And everyone in the DOJ in New York and Georgia who did the right thing by indicting Trump for his crimes. Demand that the FBI background checks are held on all of his nominees and put that in place. Issue as many executive orders to protect and Trump-proof the United States. And I agree with that. Unfreeze. Now, this was really an interesting one. Unfreeze all of Russia's assets and give them to who? The Ukraine. That would shake some folks up. That would really upset some folks. But do it. Yeah, why not? And tell the archivist to publish the fully ratified ERA and the 28th Amendment. Fully ratify the ERA and the 28th Amendment. Yeah. So why not? There's nothing. Listen, the Supreme Court, this is the thing. You know, this is a double-edged sword. The Supreme Court said, hey, presidents are immune when they're doing business in a way that they think is, or they deem as necessary. So the pardon, I'm down with the pardon in a big way that he provided for his son. Because as I said earlier in the week, to me, the pardon was, as much as people have said it was about making sure his son didn't have to go through further hell. As president of the United States, one of the roles and one of the powers that you have in executive power is to protect Americans from harm. Right, Henry? That's what, as a commander in chief, that's part of that definition, is to protect those that are in harm. Not to have how insane is it that the convicted felon has an enemies list and he's bringing people into his administration to go after those people? I got something to say about that in a moment, but I want to come back to this with regard to the presidential powers and the Supreme Court's immunity determination. He was protecting a private citizen from harm from nefarious characters. That's the thing that a president should do, is to protect the citizens in the country. And that's, to me, yeah, it's his son, but he made it clear. I'm protecting an American citizen from what I think will be harm. And some might say, well, Richard, that's kind of a lofty way of looking at it. I could give a darn, because that's ultimately, if you peel it apart, that's what he did. He knows that there's probably going to be some harm directed to this American citizen that happens to be his son. And he said, I'm going to make sure that that particular American citizen is protected. Now, there are many others. That's why this list from Sue is so powerful, that may need that same protection. And I'm okay with that. Because a double-edged sword that the Supreme Court said that a president is immune or has certain immunity, then President Biden dropped the hammer. Wake some folks up. I mean, just drop it. Go get a whole box of sledgehammers and just drop them hard, and let folks know you came to, like Governor Pritzker said here, you're going to mess with my people, you got to come through me. Well, as I leave office, if you're going to try to mess with our people, you're going to have to come through what I put down. I think that he should just come out swinging next week. We're past Thanksgiving. We're a month after the election. I'm going to come out swinging for the next month and a half. I wish he would do it. I really, really do, Henry. Unapologetically, and just go for it. and be listen, people. This whole thing about legacy, his legacy for the folks on the right, and even some of the candidly traitors on the left that criticize him pardoning Hunter. Go kick rocks, okay? Because I don't care what the folks on the right say about what the president does in terms of pardons and other things that he can do with executive order. Just do it. Because at the end of the day, going back to my analysis of protecting an American citizen, he will be protecting millions of American citizens. And he's frankly, this is the thing that a lot of people don't want to lean into. This is one of those moments of America denying honesty and truth. He's obligated to do that. It's like him getting an intel report, right, Henry? He got an intel report that says these things are possibly going to happen. Oh, or probably going to happen, depending on which word you want to use. I have the ability to affect that. Wait a minute. I have an obligation to affect that. So for those knuckleheads out there, those naysayers and those pearl clutchers and all the other folks out there that are fighting over crumbs, the president's obligated, if he's got intel, which he does, that they're going to do things to harm the country, he needs to create barriers like nobody's business. Rebar reinforced policy and executive orders, not policy, but executive orders to prevent that and protect those people. Seriously. An impenetrable fort. And I got no problems with it. And I'm not even going to go down the cultural, the racial, the whatever gender categories. I'm going to say across the board. If it's going to protect people from these incoming fools, then go on and do it. Create an iron dome of executive orders to let the incoming administration and the clown car that it's going to be know that my legacy will be that after this election, I decided that I'm going to make sure I protect as many people as possible. Be damn me being nice Uncle Joe anymore. I'm coming out hard. I'm okay with that. I personally think, Henry, for those mealy-mouthed, candidly Democrats who are clutching their pearls, I think that kind of sledgehammer mentality from President Biden will awaken. That'll do more for the party going forward than it will do and do that in a positive way than in a negative way. I think if President Biden just went for broke in a restrained way, but went for broke to protect American citizens, that would be one of the most powerful parts of his legacy, is that he recognized that the intel told him that there was incoming damage, and I'm going to do everything to put a dome and protection around the citizens that I love, that helped get me elected, and that have been electing me for the last, damn near half century. That's what I would do. And I President Biden, if you're hearing me, I got you. And I'll stand up for you these next few years if someone says that what you did was inappropriate. I'll stand up for you in that space because I know that part of your requirement, your responsibility is to protect American citizens. So go ahead and do it. Pull out that pen, bring some sledgehammers to the Oval Office, and say, "I dare you to try to stop me. I dare you to try to stop me." Why not? We should encourage him to do these things. That this is a list that Sue put out, but we should encourage him. Issue some blank pardons on the J6 committee. Everyone in the DOJ in New York and in Georgia. Demand the FBI background checks on these incoming nominees. Executive orders at the end of the day to Trump-proof the United States as much as possible. Go on, President Biden. Richard Chu's got you. You do your thing. As they say, you do you, boo. Well, right now, you do you, boo is that pen and that sledgehammer. And I actually think, Henry, there'll be millions of Americans will say it's about damn time. I really do. And the voices in Congress and in the Senate and maybe even some governors will be overshadowed by citizens, by voters, by the community that said he saw the incoming damage and the intel. He has the intel. And he decided he's going to do the best he can. I think a lot of Americans would support that, to be honest with you. I really do. making sure that he can use that pen and those sledgehammers to build a fortress around the country, to protect the country from these fools that are coming into office. But I'll tell you this as the last word. We get to do that as well. We get to protect ourselves. We get to protect ourselves by connecting with the people that we care about. And I say this, as I've said so many times, make that your point, is to find out who you can reach out to, who you can share with, who you can make sure that our voices in the progressive conversation are out there for folks to tap into. When you do that, not if, when you do that, you may be surprised at the number of people that will go, wow, I didn't know that station was out there or that show was out there and that podcast is out there. And that's going to be one of the elements that's going to continue to allow us to move forward. I promise you that. I promise you that. Guys, it's coming up on the weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Get out and about. Enjoy wherever you are. Get out of the house. Do something fun. Do something different. And most definitely, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you next week.